You start recording. Okay.
Meeting is being recorded.
Okay.
Okay.
Hello, everyone. And today we are having the 9th session of the joint TESOL-Italy, TESOL-Ukraine project, sharing context between cultures. And now the floor is given to the person who represents TESOL-Italy, TESOL-Italy Vice President, Daniela Cucurullo.
Okay, thank you, Marina, and welcome everyone. On behalf of TESOL-Italy, as Vice President, it's my pleasure, my honor today to introduce our guest speaker, Mike Mayer. Mike is a Senior Director of English Learning Research and Design at Pearson. On leaving university, Michael worked as an English teacher in France before entering the world of publishing as a lexicographer. Mike joined Pearson in 2003 and headed up Longman dictionaries list until his move to learning research and design in 2013. Mike has a BA in French, a deep TEFLA, and an MPhil in English and Applied Linguistics from Cambridge University. Just a few words on the webinar: studies into the impact of technology and automation on society suggest that many of today's students will be applying for jobs which currently do not exist. So how do we prepare these learners for such future uncertainties? What are the skills of the future that will ensure their place in tomorrow's job market? And is the place of ELT teachers to be teaching these skills? Now, these and many other things I think we'll discover during this webinar. Mike, the floor is yours.
Okay, thank you. And good evening, everybody. Thanks for taking the time out. I think it's probably late-ish in Ukraine, right? 7 o'clock maybe in Ukraine. So I'm sure everybody's ready for dinner. Hopefully I can keep your attention away from your rumbling stomachs. Let me share my screen. Okay. So if somebody can just nod that they can, Lena, I can see you. Can you see my screen? Yes? Yes, you can.
Yes,
okay.
we can. Yes.
Okay, thank you. So as Daniela said, I head up English Learning Research and Design at Pearson, which, as the title suggests, I work with the English Language Teaching Division to inform their products from best practice research and design. However, I also sit in a part of the business which looks at other types of research. And so in the session today, I want to look at both English and some other research that we've done around those skills that will make our students employable in the future. Okay. At a couple of points in the presentation, I'm going to ask you to put an answer in chat. If you could, I've got the chat open on my phone, so I'll be monitoring what you're saying in chat on my other device. So let's kick off. So the question really I'm asking is, are our students prepared for the workplace? And depending on who you ask, you're going to get two very different answers. So if you ask academic officers at university, they will say, yes, we do prepare students for the workplace. Okay, almost everyone, 96%. But if you ask employers, they will say, not so much. There are some skills that we're not seeing. So actually, only 11% of employers say that they think we are preparing students for the workplace. So why this disconnect? What is going on? So here's your first question. I want you to think back to when you were 12 years old. Okay, you're 12 years old. Luckily, everybody's on mute, but this is me at 12 years old. You don't have to search. It's that one in the middle. Yes, it was the 1970s. What can I say? That was the fashion. So think back to when you were 12 years old. What did you want to be when you left school? Like, what was your dream? What was the job you wanted when you left school? And if you could type your answer into the chat, I'll be able to see, and everybody will be able to see what you wanted to do. Okay, I've got a cook, a surgeon, an ambassador. Wow, an ambitious, a nurse, a pianist, teacher, journalist. Okay, teacher. I myself wanted to be a travel rep. I wanted to work for a travel company because I thought that meant I would always be on holiday and traveling off to the sun. Oh, and I see somebody also wanted to be a travel agent. Okay, you can carry on. Cosmonaut. Wow. Okay, carry on typing into the chat box. So the point I'm kind of making with this question is nobody put any of those jobs in the chat, right? And certainly when I was 12 years old, none of these jobs existed. So I couldn't have wanted to be an app developer because we didn't have apps when I was 12 years old. And the scary statistic, and this was from 2015, is that, you know, 2/3 of 12-year-olds today will actually end up in a job that today does not exist. And I've just read a report that's just come into my inbox saying that this has just accelerated. So it's not slowing down. This change in jobs, the change in the skills required is accelerating. So as an educator, where does that leave you? What are the skills that you need to be teaching to your students? Another quick question for you. How many different jobs have you had in your career? And I don't mean a teacher at this school, a teacher at this school, a teacher at this school. So teacher is one career, if you like. How many jobs have you had in your career to date since leaving school? Okay, I see 4, 2, 5, quite a lot. I think when I did the maths, I got to 4 for myself. Okay, I'm seeing 2, 2, 3, 2, 3. Okay, 2 or 3. Look at this scary statistic, is that millennials will have between 12 and 14 jobs over the course of their career. Okay, so people will be changing jobs much more regularly than certainly people of my generation. So I've just celebrated 19 years with Pearson. For millennials, that is like incomprehensible. Why would you stay 19 years with a company? They're going to change careers much more often. So what does this mean about the skill set that we need to be teaching them? And Pearson started asking themselves this question a few years ago and carried out a piece of research looking at those skills that employers would be looking for in 2030. Okay, the presentation, we will be sharing the presentation with you. There are links in the presentation that you will be able to follow up on in your own time. But basically, the skills that came out were the type of things that you can see on the screen there. And those are just the top 20. There are actually over 50 or so of these skills that were identified. And as you heard in my bio, I used to be a language teacher, and I've been in language publishing for quite a long time. And it seemed to me that those skills were not really new. These were skills that we've often referred to as 21st century skills, right? Or the 4 C's, so critical thinking, creativity, collaboration, communication. They're just broken down into a few more areas. 21st century skills, obviously, now that we're in the 21st century, it's no longer really a fashionable title. So you hear future skills or soft skills or life skills, a lot of different titles, but these are the things that increasingly employers are looking for. And we talk a lot about it, and I've been to conferences, there's a lot of presentations on soft skills, almost to the extent that you think, okay, so what about the other skills? Are they not important? And I think we talk a lot about the soft skills now because they've been neglected in the past and are still being neglected in the education system. But obviously, the other skills are still equally important. So we need to create a balance between soft skills and, you know, the hard skills. And so at Pearson, we've created what we call the employability framework. So this is a framework just really simplifying the different types of skills that you need to be employable. Okay, back into the chat. Let's see if you can guess what skills would appear. Sorry, I think somebody needs to go on mute. Which skills would occur in core academic competencies? What types of things, skills, do you think we've put under core competencies? If you want to type something into the chat. So what skills do we consider to be core competencies? The chat is very silent. Still very silent. Okay. Oracy, reading, multilingualism. Okay, you're all thinking a bit too hard. It's much more simple than this. Actually, Shelley, you're kind of getting you're getting there with what you put in. Those real basic skills of literacy and numeracy. So being able to read and write and being able to count. Okay, everybody needs those basic skills, and increasingly our students need to be digitally fluent. So digital fluency is now considered a core competency for future employment. Occupational competencies, okay, that is easier. Those are the specific skills linked to particular jobs. So obviously, if you're going to be a doctor, you need a specific set of occupational skills, as opposed to if you're an accountant or if you're a teacher or if you're a lawyer. Okay. Personal and social capabilities, those are the soft skills. So this is what Pearson is calling the soft skills, the future skills. They are those capabilities which are human skills, so personal and social. And if I show you the full range of those skills, you can see we have those 4 C's that everybody's, I'm sure, familiar with: collaboration, communication, critical thinking, and creativity. And to that, we've added leadership skills, self-management, and social responsibility. And then the final area that we have is something known as career knowledge and transition skills. So what do you think goes into transition skills? What does transition refer to, do you think? Again, you can type into the chat. This is a challenging one. When I ask this question at conferences, people struggle a little bit with this one. Obviously, lifelong learning, that is critical, but it doesn't fit in this area. Think about the word transition. Transition, moving from one thing to another. What do you think we're moving from? Moving from one to the other. So a lot of the skills that are coming into the chat are skills from the personal and social capabilities. So maybe I will put you out of your misery. Really, these transition skills, we're thinking about transitioning between the world of education and the world of work, or between one job and another job. And so that's things like being able to write a CV, being able to showcase your skills and qualifications. And increasingly important, again, not something that was a problem when I was 12 years old or, in secondary school, developing a social media presence and ensuring that that is a positive social media presence. So particularly if we're in, say, the school area, so primary, secondary, really educating our students about the potential dangers of what you post on social media and the fact that employers could find that information in the future, and that might create problems for them when they are coming to apply for a job. So this is organized by TESOL, TESOL-Italy, TESOL-Ukraine. Where does English fit into all of this? So we know, again, through some of the research that we've done in our learner survey, this is a survey that's carried out every year to find out, how students are learning, what students are learning, why students are learning. When it comes to English, we know that many of our students are studying English with a view to using it at work, in the workplace. So they might want to work for a multinational company, they may want to travel abroad, they may want to guarantee that their current job is safe. Maybe their company has started working internationally, and so, increasingly, like it or not, English is often the language of communication between different countries. So we see the importance of English in the workplace. And so English really goes across all of these categories. So we need to teach the general competency in English when we're thinking about particular careers. Obviously, we have English for specific purposes and business skills. And then we can teach learners, interviewing techniques in English, writing letters of application, writing CVs. So really, English straddles all of this. And when I started on the project that I'm going to talk about briefly next, we did some research with LinkedIn, and we were asking employers and employees about the English language needs. And 92% of employees said that English was important in their job, but only 7% said that they were confident in their English, that they felt they could communicate effectively in English at work. And that could be, modesty, or but there's something that they were not, even when they spoke English, they didn't have the right English for the workplace. And so I'm sure you're all very familiar with the Common European Framework. And looking at the Common European Framework, I headed up a project at Pearson to develop something called the Global Scale of English. And the Global Scale of English was really looking to address some of the limitations of the Common European Framework. The fact that it was focused on general English, not particularly focused on work or study, that it was focused on adult learners and not young learners. The fact that most of the information was about speaking. And so, as a publisher of 4 skills, we needed more information about writing, listening, and reading. The fact that it's really difficult to show regular progress using the A1, A2, B1, B2, C1, C2, because it takes so long to get through the levels of the Common European Framework. And the fact that teachers found it difficult to use in their day-to-day teaching. That the can-do statements that I'm sure many of you are familiar with need adapting to the local context and the context of English. And so as part of the Global Scale of English project, we created 4 frameworks of can-do statements, of learning objectives. You can see them there on the screen. You can download these for free. And in the context of today's presentation, obviously, I want to focus on what we developed for professional English, so that the business, the workplace. In the Common European Framework, the world of work is a small area, but we've developed a whole framework to support the teaching and learning and assessment of English for the workplace. And these PDFs that you can download are literally lists of learning objectives at different levels of proficiency. And they cover those different areas that we looked at: the core competencies, the general English, the work-specific English, and those transitional skills about interviewing and writing CVs. So if you're interested in English for professional purposes, download this particular PDF and you will have a framework to support your teaching. But even better, and also free, is something called the Global Scale of English Teacher Toolkit. And again, you've got a link in the presentation, and you will find all of those learning objectives in a searchable database, along with grammar, vocabulary, and a text analyzer to analyze the difficulty level of your texts. Now, unfortunately, today's presentation is not about the Global Scale of English, so I can't spend too long on this. But for example, if you look for your professional learners, you can search for a skill, and instead of looking for a skill, reading, listening, speaking, writing, you can look for a specific job skill. So applying for jobs or hiring for jobs, writing reports, reading reports, giving presentations, and you will find it's a way to search the information to find those learning objectives which are appropriate for a particular business skill. Similarly, we've done some work to identify the language skills that are required for specific professions. So we've taken a database of jobs, the ONET database, and the database lists all the things that a particular job you're required to do in a particular job. And we have aligned those to Global Scale of English learning objectives. And so in the teacher toolkit, you can search for a particular job role. So if you're teaching a group of nurses, you will get a list of learning objectives which we know are relevant for people who will need English in their nursing career. So as I say, we're not spending a lot of time on this today. Go off and explore it, play around. As I say, it's all free and easy to access. You don't have to register, you just click away. And within Pearson, all of this supports our connected learning cycle. So we have, we plan using the learning objectives, we create materials using the learning objectives, we have assessments which assess those learning objectives. They would give reports and scores for the different skills, recommended feedback and remedial activities, right up to certification. So that Global Scale of English project now informs everything that Pearson creates in English language teaching. But today, is English enough to secure a job? Maybe 20, 30 years ago, if you had a good level in English, it would serve you well. And I'm not saying that today it doesn't serve you well, but maybe it's not the golden ticket that it used to be. And what employers are increasingly looking for are these 21st century skills. And so again, I work in a research department. We've done a lot of research. these are research papers on those soft skills, personal and social capabilities. There's another title for you, Skills for Today. Again, there's a link. You can follow the link to find videos on each of these skills, tips on how to teach them. But let me just give you the kind of summary, the key takeaways from the research that we've pulled together. Apologies for me keep drinking, but my voice is about to go. So sorry for drinking on a presentation. So what does the research say? All the soft skills need to be explicitly taught. So you cannot simply assume that they will be picked up along the way. You can't just put students in groups and assume that they will learn the skills of collaboration and teamwork. No, they need to be explicitly taught. You need to start young. So often people think that because these are employability skills, you can start in upper secondary and at university, but all the research suggests that these skills take years and years to really master. And so the younger you start, the more chance you have of mastering them before you become eligible to enter the job market. And this is particularly important for those students who might not see those soft skills being modeled amongst their peers or in their families. And this is the interesting point, I think, and the reason why I'm talking about this today. Soft skills are taught most effectively within the context of teaching other subjects. So you don't have a class, an hour every week on critical thinking or collaboration or communication. The research suggests that that doesn't work. You have to integrate these skills into other subjects. And personally, I think the English or the language teaching, not necessarily English, but the language teaching classroom is the perfect place to start teaching a lot of these skills. As with, and you know, you need to create that safe environment where students feel safe to experiment, because you know they won't get it right the first time. As with all language learning and a lot of learning, they need to feel supported and that they're not going to be somehow punished for making mistakes. So I'm not suggesting that today we suddenly start integrating all of these skills into every class. That would be quite a big ask for teachers. But I think what we need to do is to start raising the profile of these skills. So actually let students know which of these skills are being practiced in the various activities that we're doing and why they are important. And so obviously you would need tasks in the classroom, and group tasks, researching a topic, sharing ideas, suggesting solutions. These are all things which we build into our courses. I mean, not just Pearson, but all language teaching into their courses. They might not be flagged as this is collaboration, this is critical thinking, but they're there. And so that's why I'm saying we need to raise the profile of these skills and let students know why they are learning them. And as I said, just putting people into group work will not ensure good teamwork. And so a very simple technique that many of you are quite possibly aware of already is within group work, assign different roles to people in the group. So someone's there to ensure that people aren't interrupting, another person to ensure that everybody contributes to the conversation. Somebody's taking notes, somebody's doing something else. So assigning very clear roles will help develop those micro skills. Feedback, always feedback. So if we're raising the profile of these skills with students, we need to give them some idea of what are we looking for. And when we're thinking about feedback and monitoring how well things are doing, certainly in classes where the proficiency level is a little higher, you can get your students to evaluate each other and self-evaluate. It shouldn't always just be the teacher who's doing the evaluation. And then I think a key element for the language classroom is that you would need to teach the language needed to demonstrate these future skills. So maybe somebody is actually quite good at collaboration in their first language. They just don't have the necessary phraseology to be able to do that in English. So I see at Pearson, we're starting to integrate this more and more into our course books. But you know, today you may not find all of this phraseology, all of this vocabulary in the materials you're using. And this is a typical, I'm sure you would organize this as a typical English language teaching activity where you've taught the vocabulary, you've taught the grammar, you're building up to that group discussion at the end where people are going to work out, you know, what's the best place, where's the best place to go for dinner. And you look in the teacher's book and the teacher's notes say, you know, let the discussion go ahead, don't be interrupting, and listen out for the grammar that you've taught and the vocabulary that you've taught, etc., etc. So, and that's what you would expect. This is a language teaching book, right? So we need to make sure they're using what we've taught. However, I think following that same model, it would be relatively easy to create a similar rubric, maybe not for every class, but for some classes, where you're also listening out for polite interruption. Are people asking others for opinions? Are people inviting others into the discussion? And actually pointing that out and giving credit when people are doing that. So again, raising the profile that these skills are actually important. I mentioned that one of the things we need to do is to be able to tell students what good looks like, okay? And this is the most challenging part of the task, really. And you can read that quote. This is from somebody from the HR world, saying that, you know, the difficulty is, in order to be able to measure these soft skills, we really need to establish a shared definition of these skills. And how do we know that a skill has been mastered? And so this is the latest piece of research that we've been working on at Pearson. And we have, I have a digital copy of this framework, which I'm happy to share with people on the call. And this is really looking at addressing that problem. What are the different stages in progressing through the mastery of a particular skill, in this case, collaboration? So we've worked with external experts from, you know, psychology, learning design, learning research, around the world to try and avoid any cultural bias, and then worked with our own internal teams as well to review what we've come up with. And so the first thing is really start breaking these quite vague terms down into smaller, manageable sections, if you like. So collaboration is broken down into these 3 sub-skills. And then within each of those sub-skills, they're then broken down into smaller areas to focus on. And so thinking about listening and building on ideas, the framework that we've developed looks at that for 5 different levels, from emerging, like just starting to show mastery of this skill, all the way up to mastery. And you can see the different aspects. And if I just flick through what this looks like, you can see we have the engaging with ideas, interpersonal communication, and task management. So those are frameworks that we will be sharing with teachers once they're all ready, to help inform the definition of what you would be looking at different levels of proficiency. And by proficiency, I don't just mean English language proficiency, because these are 2 different things. You've got English language proficiency, and then you've got the soft skills proficiency. So you might be very good at English, but actually quite basic in soft skills, or vice versa. You might be actually pretty good at the soft skills, but a much lower level in English, so struggling to demonstrate those soft skills in English. So as I say, I'm going to put my email on if you would like me to share that with you. I'm very happy to do so. So just really to sum up what I've really been talking about today is, as the world of work is changing, as the kind of the skills that employers are looking for is changing, we need to think about integrating these soft skills more and more into the rest of the curriculum. And obviously today we're focusing on English language teaching. Where possible, start young. I mean, it's never too late, but it's better to start young. Raise the profile, as I say, slowly, let's just start raising the profile so that students are aware of the skills that they are acquiring. Feedback, obviously important. Model the skills yourself. So yeah, you have to practice what you preach, as they say. And then within English, you will have to teach the necessary language that allows learners to demonstrate those skills. Include the activities which enables learners to practice. And as we've seen, these are very common in English language teaching materials. So that should be an easier lift, I think, in a language classroom than maybe in a history classroom. Although my experience of what happens in a history classroom is very ancient. So maybe it's changed a lot since I was at school. And then think about sharing the criteria. You know, what are you looking for? What does good look like? So my email address is on the screen there. If anybody would like a digital copy of this framework, I'll have to send it to you. We haven't yet put it on an external website. They will go on an external website, but if you'd like a copy now, then you should email me there. And I think I'm going to stop there. Yes, I'll leave that up in case you want to copy down my email address, and we can go to discussion, questions. Anything else you'd like to talk about?
Okay, thank you, Mike, for this really inspiring webinar and very concrete suggestions for us as professionals, but also as for our teachers. I don't know if you have any questions. I know that someone said a good help for syllabus writing, competencies for ESP learners at university, and a lot of appreciation. Great job. Thank you so much.
Mm-hmm. I see a couple of hands up. So I see Irina has her hand up. If you'd like, yeah.
No,
Yeah.
Thank you so much, Mike, because I am involved in ESP, and your presentation was rather helpful and a good addition, and filling the gap of the problems I raised a couple of a fortnight ago, you see. That is my question comes from. You mentioned learning objectives, but in our syllabuses in Ukraine, we have both learning objectives and learning outcomes. And there are always hot discussions are there any differences between them? Because we assess learning outcomes, but at the beginning of the course, we got learning objectives. Please give us a hint or help how to differentiate them.
So for me, the learning objective is the goal. Okay, you're setting an objective for this lesson, for this course, for this week, whatever. The outcome is the result.
Yeah.
Okay, but I know we ourselves are always mixing learning objective, learning outcome rather indiscriminately at Pearson, I'm saying. So I do think that people often use them interchangeably. But for me, an objective is something you set, and then an outcome is the thing that you're measuring to see what's the result. Yeah.
Absolutely. That is why I wanted to hear from you, because as I see also learning objectives, this is the perspective of a teacher at the beginning of the course or unit if you are in Pearson, writing a course book. And the outcomes you predict what will be as the result of these learning objectives, you can measure by the end. And one more question, I'm awfully sorry, because I see Anya Guseva is raising her hand. One more question.
Okay.
I agree fully about integration, also share this challenge, but my question is, I'm greatly impressed, first of all, about the work you have done about all these frameworks. Believe me, I know how it's difficult and what stands after that job, because we manage only for ESP in general. That is why my question is about 21st century skills, and one of them, which is rather, how to say, demanded, critical thinking. And my question is, are there any descriptors to measure and to identify the level of critical thinking of our students?
Okay, so the collaboration framework that you see on the screen, we have developed a framework for critical thinking. So it isn't exactly like can blah 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 blah, can blah 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 blah. Okay, there are some of the global scale of English learning objectives which do lend themselves to the critical thinking piece. So things like, you know, can compare different articles on the same topic and, you know, compare the ideas. So there are global scale of English learning objectives which enable you to practice critical thinking. But I think what you're asking for is measuring critical thinking as such. That will be this framework for critical thinking, which should be available in the summer sometime. So watch this space. You have to follow me on LinkedIn to find out when it comes out. Okay.
Unbelievable. You have done a fantastic job. Well, it's really unbelievable, incredible, but you are great. Thanks to your team, please pass, because you have done a very, very, very useful job for teachers of the university. Thank you very
much. And
I will write.
Okay, do. And you mentioned Mighty, obviously, I do not do this all on my own, right? There are a lot of bigger brains than mine at Pearson working on this. So yes, it has, as you say, been a lot of work. These have been, you know, years in the making.
Of research, it's not only work. First research, then
exactly.
Then reading, proofreading. I imagine it's unbelievable. Great.
Okay, thank you. So maybe Anne, I've got two Annas up there. Anna Guseva.
Yeah. Well, thank you very much for wonderful seminar. Actually, Irina's question is a little bit the start for my considerations that I want to share with you. Actually, we all expect critical thinking from our students, but it would be very nice if we start from ourselves. The teacher should be the person who has sound and healthy critical thinking himself or herself. What do I mean? the question that was raised by Irina about learning objectives and learning outcomes, quite often something that we expect of the course that we're teaching to our students is not something that corresponds to the outcomes that we eventually get. What I'm talking about, thinking about soft skills and the soft skills that are relevant for the 21st century, it got me thinking that quite a lot of careers that are that exist nowadays are going to be obsolete in, for example, 10 years perspective.
Mhm.
Okay.
Yeah.
So knowing that and bearing in mind the fact that when we start teaching something, it's going to be obsolete within 5 years. So when our students, for example, graduate from the university, something that we're teaching to them right now is going to be obsolete already.
Mhm.
So we
Yeah.
have to be very, very, very much critical thinking and how to say that, have this skill of vision of what is going to be actual and what is going to be, what kind of skills are going to be actual and relevant for the time when they graduate.
That's actually very, I mean, that is a challenging thing to do, right?
Yeah.
And Pearson has just acquired a company based in Australia that analyzes data in the markets, right? Masses and masses of data to do exactly what you were saying there, as to, based on the data, can we predict that in 5 years' time, what will happen with this role? Okay, and so what they are finding is that, you know, we were joking the other day that I don't know whether it's the same in your country, but certainly when I was at school, people would say, "Oh, get a job in banking. People will always need banks." Actually, those jobs are changing radically in banks. So, you know, so we cannot predict. So, but the one thing that certainly at the moment is stable and coming out of the research are these transferable skills, like the collaboration, the critical thinking, that those will always be necessary because they are uniquely human, at least at the moment. Who knows where technology will go, but at the moment they're uniquely human. And certainly in the 5 to 10 year arena, employers will be looking for that those skills. But you're absolutely right. Even something which seems guaranteed, like, you know, accountancy, like people will always need accountants, but now there's apps where people can do their own accounts really easily without needing an accountant, right? So yeah, point well made, very well made. Thank you.
Yeah, and just one more little consideration with reference to what you have just said. That besides employing some outsourced results from analytical companies or analytical research groups, we should also, when we start any kind of practical course or theoretical course, do a needs analysis from our students. Quite often our students are more critical thinking because they will keep the pace with the time, you know, and do this so-called student tailor-made courses, key to adapt the course from the very beginning to the needs of the students. And quite often the students' needs analysis will help us to search for the right azimuth in teaching.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know what it's like in, excuse me, in Ukraine, but certainly in the UK, where you have like the kind of what we might call the red brick universities, the traditional universities, you know, the Oxford, the Cambridge, like never change their course. And the more technical universities often, I mean, there's still prestige in going to one of these Oxford, Cambridge universities, but to what you were saying, you need to adapt what you're teaching. Otherwise, the employers will continue to say they don't have the skills we need. Yeah.
Yeah.
Thank
Exactly.
you. Thanks for your points.
Thank you.
Anna Smith.
Yeah. Hello. Thank you,
Hi.
Mike.
Hi.
Great. Hi. Yeah. Yeah. a question, and perhaps a little bit more specific, but following on from both two other questions actually, about looking forward and obsolete skills. Yeah, so totally following and find this fascinating as well. We had a webinar the other day about translanguaging and how language is changing the way that we communicate. So being a native speaker, and I do a lot of conversation stuff and writing, I've found now with weaker, less academic students, they are convinced that they don't need language, certainly grammar. And I was just wondering, when you're looking at those transferable skills, especially writing CVs and the use of emails, do you think these things are going out of fashion at such a rate, and the way that they are being expected to communicate, that even within a business environment, is actually more to do with messaging and texting?
No, I don't. I think poor communication can lead to a whole host of issues in the workplace. I mean, language adapts, right? So it's not, I think, certainly as a first language speaker communicating in a first language speaking company, generally communication is more informal now, particularly in English. I remember when I first left university after teaching, I worked for a French company. This was in the 1990s, where even by email, written communication was much more formal, and there were the very fixed expressions you had to use, right, to show courtesy and respect and whatever. I don't see that as much now, but I think it's almost more difficult now because it's so easy to misinterpret, right, emails, even between first language speakers. So that written, what might appear to be abrupt was not intended to be abrupt. So I think you're right, things are changing. Do I think those written and spoken communication skills still hold their own? I mean, absolutely. There was a report from the HR Society of HR Managers in the US who identified the top 5 skills gaps in the US. 3 of them were around written and spoken communication. And that was for first language speakers of English. Okay, that wasn't language learners. That was supposedly people who were using their own language. They still identified those along with digital. I forget what the other one was, but 3 were around spoken and written communication. So I think whilst it has changed, and you're right, and we saw Common European Framework adapted to include online interaction and online communication. So I think we're teaching slightly different written and spoken skills, because that online interaction is kind of this funny hybrid between spoken and written English, isn't it, in some contexts. But yeah, I'm not sure I answered your question terribly eloquently, but I think it's probably even more important now than it was before.
Yeah, no, thank you very much. I think it's a difficult area because it is very uncertain. So it's nice to have the measures and being able to measure what you've been talking about today. Because, like you said, the research that's gone into this, we definitely need this. But even this week, I was quite frightened to hear what the students replied to me in terms of writing emails, and I'm like, yeah, you may be right. We're just teaching them a skill that's already they're not going to find it useful in the next 3 or 4 years. So I just thought,
I see. Yeah, no, I see what you mean. I do remember a problem that we had at Pearson was that we had a platform that students could access, right, with their course book, and the access codes were emailed to students, and they wondered, that we couldn't understand why nobody was accessing it. And it's basically, they might have an email account, but millennials don't use email, right? So yeah, I take your point. It's now moved to, you know, even in a work environment, if I look at our sales communications, they use WhatsApp. Okay, it's no longer email. Yeah, crazy, because it's more immediate. I think everybody wants things now. It's immediate, isn't it? Ola, have I pronounced your name correctly?
Yes, Mike, thanks for your presentation. Great resources, thanks. And my question will be, I would like to ask your opinion, because I have come across with some information that some linguists and scholars would like to introduce the fifth C of the 21st century skills, and it is called connected. It is, have you heard about them, this, and is it reasonable to introduce the fifth C, this connected? It's about their community, commitment, contribution. So I would like to know your opinion about this introduction of the fifth C into these skills. Thanks.
Okay, so I will admit I hadn't heard of the fifth C. When you mentioned the fifth C, I thought you were going to say cultural awareness, because that's often already seen as the fifth C. So this might be the sixth C, connectedness. I would say all the things that you listed under connectedness are already part of those personal and social communication categories that I gave. So for example, the community social awareness, that we call that social responsibility. Okay, maybe that's not sexy because it's not a C, but we call it social responsibility. So I think definitely, especially as the kind of the UN goals are being introduced into many curricula around the world, and there we're looking at, you know, cultural communication, sustainability, that's a big one, you know. I think yeah, I hadn't heard connectedness as a fifth C, but I think they're all the things that you listed are absolutely part of the future skills. Yeah.
Thanks a lot.
You're welcome. I maybe will stop sharing my screen now. I think we're almost at the top of the hour. Are there any last questions before I guess somebody brings this to an end? Oh, it looks like Marina is going to bring it to an end.
Yes, I'm going to bring it to an end. Thank you, Mike, for such a brilliant presentation, and great thanks for this last day, but I hope it's not our last meeting together with TESOL-Italy. And before I give floor to our president to say the final word, I would like to remind everyone right now, please write your name and your email in the chat. It will help me to send you the certificates. And you will see the certificates will look like this. Let me just share the screen here. So that will be the certificate, but this certificate has no Mike's presentation here, but the certificate in general will be for 18 academic hours. And you will see your names on the website, on TESOL-Ukraine website. I will send you the certificate together with the link to the website. The only difference between our usual certificates that have your name and a number will be like this. The certificates won't have your names and they won't have the numbers. The numbers will be on the website. You will just have to write your name in and save the certificate in a PDF file. So please name and email, like name and email, because I will need your name for the website and I will need your email for sending you a certificate. And on the website, there will be all the recordings of the sessions. So most of the people who are here, I have the list of participants from every session. So I will just check whether you attended or not, and will send you a certificate. Okay. So, and even if you haven't attended every presentation, I believe that you will watch the recordings on TESOL-Ukraine website. So once again, Mike, thank you so much. And I'm giving floor to our TESOL-Ukraine president, Olena Ilyenka.
Thank you, Marina. Thank you, Mike. Thank you, all people from TESOL-Italy and TESOL-Ukraine who have participated our webinars hosted by Italian presenters from Italy and their guests and presenters from Ukraine. It was a real support for us Ukrainian teachers, and I believe these seminars has helped us to get through these difficult days of the war period and helped us to focus on the thing which we really like very much. I mean, our teaching, our profession. And I believe this is only the beginning of our long cooperation in future, fruitful cooperation with all people from TESOL-Italy. I hope next year we will continue holding our all Ukrainian conference convention, and we will be able to invite all of you to participate in our convention and to see our country. And I also believe that in our teacher training, teacher development events, we will explore, we will discuss again all the topics that you, all the ideas that you have shared and all the topics that you have discussed with us. Thank you for all your support in support for the teachers of Ukraine. Thank you.
Lina, thank you very much for these kind words. On behalf of TESOL-Italy, I would like also to thank everyone for joining us in this great and successful, very successful initiative. I think that it is just a first step and that we'll continue to organize things together. You can also find all the recordings on our website. And even if she's not here because she has just crashed, I would like to thank Sarah Howell, who is the godmother of this initiative. So thank you very much for all this great job that you and Sarah have done together. And also, of course, Maria Grazia Maione, who is the president of TESOL-Italy. And I said before, she could not be here today for school activities. You know, at the end of May, it is a very a month full of activities. So thank you again, and we hope to start again in September, sharing our ideas, reflections, suggestions, and everything. Okay.
By all means.
And I just want to, I don't know, I'm going to turn my computer round because I want to share the sight out of my window. It has to be a good sign. This is a typical British summer day where it's been sunny and it's raining and there is the most spectacular rainbow. I don't know if you can see. Can you see that?
Yeah, we can. Yeah.
That
Fabulous, fantastic, really.
that has got to be a good sign, right?
Yeah. So it's a good sign. Yeah.
It's wonderful. Thank you. Yeah. Okay, so it's time to say goodbye, and like we became a family for this time and during this time. So hope we'll meet soon at the beginning of the new academic year, and we'll have projects and you will participate in them. Yeah.
Thank you.
So bye-bye.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thank you.
See
Bye.
you. See you.
Thank you so much. Bye.
Yeah.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye bye then. Thank you.
Thank you a lot.
Bye-bye.